Democratic strategist David Katz and Katie Frost, Republican strategist and former executive director of the Georgia Freedom Caucus. Welcome both. Katie, we will start with you tonight. Alina touching on this in her report. Trump saying he is not concerned about speculation that Elon Musk has had undue influence the past week during the government shutdown battle. Republicans are saying Musk is a valuable asset. Let's take a quick listen together.
Even the federal government can bring in consultants. Think about this. We're bringing in the richest, the most successful man in the United States, in fact, in the world. And President Trump has got him to come in to be the government's consultant, to show where we're having wasteful spending, to show where we can do things better.
And they dumped over 1,500 pages on us. And Elon Musk, using the tool of Twitter, brought transparency to the entirety of it. The American public were shocked. We are always shocked when we see these types of monstrosities at the last minute that haven't been properly vetted.
Now, Musk isn't elected. Is that an issue? And how involved do you see him being with Congress and the legislative process going forward?
Well, it's great to be with you again, Natasha. I see him as someone who's very involved in the process. He is an advisor to the president. And I do find it slightly ironic that we're hearing a lot of concerns coming out of the Democratic Party about the influence of unelected advisors in light of the report you had at the top of this program and Lindy's very insightful interview discussing how President Biden has pretty much been asleep at the wheel for the last several years, and his advisors are the ones who essentially have been running the country rather than him. He has not been up to the task. Elon Musk is someone who has a proven record as an innovator. He is someone who is able to bring a fresh approach and look to the federal government. And that's why when, a swampy standard approach, like a 1,500-page bill being dropped on you with 24 hours to process it, someone like Elon Musk goes, hey, guess what, America? Look what's in this bill. And the people responded. And so it was an amazing call to action. That he can activate people like that is quite impressive. I've been in grassroots politics for a long time. I've never seen such a response so quickly. So I'd see him as someone who's an advisor and someone who's going to bring some transparency and a fresh perspective to the process.
Okay, so Katie bringing up the WSJ report. David, let's get your perspective. Let's return to that bombshell Wall Street Journal report. We had Lindy Lee's comments at the top of our show tonight that Biden has been diminished for some time now. The administration is denying any claims that Biden has declined. What is your perspective tonight, David?
Well, my perspective is that he was running the country. The country's now going in a different direction. I think the Republican senators are very capable when they take over in January of running the country in a sensible way. I don't think they need Elon Musk to tell them what to do. I think they ended up with a bill which was much better than it would have been after Musk tried to, put the kibosh on it. But I think that the speech today that Trump gave was very troubling. He's talking about things like taking back the Panama Canal. That's a really stupid thing to say. It emboldens people like Russia thinking they can take back Ukraine and people like China thinking that they can take back Taiwan. There are borders in this world, and the Panama Canal, if we don't like the duties there, we can pay less duties, we can negotiate with them, we can take things by other routes. But to say that we're going to take the sovereignty from Panama is ridiculous. And for Trump to say that he wants to meet right away with Putin, of course Putin wants to meet right away with him because they're hoping that Trump will surrender the Ukraine. America will never let the Ukraine be surrendered. That's a cornerstone of Europe and of European security. We're never going to walk away from NATO. And this will be the great crusade of the future if Trump really tries to walk away from Europe and tries to capitulate to Putin.
And David, there's a lot to unpack there, but I just want to return to what Katie was saying about this latest report. Is it disturbing to you as a Democratic strategist to see some of these details in the Wall Street Journal report? As Katie said, perhaps Biden was asleep at the wheel the entire time. Do you agree with that?
Well, just because you read it in the newspaper doesn't make it true. So I think that, we'll get to the bottom of that, certainly, Natasha. But I think that there are some more troubling things. If you want to talk about how the government's being run, I think Tulsi Gabbard is a terrible choice. These are the crown of American intelligence to let her. I don't think the Senate is going to let her have access. I think that they're going to call that one off. And RFK Jr., he's talking about, or his lawyer's talking about, removing the polio vaccine, Natasha. The polio vaccine saved millions of lives. He's talking about restricting vaccines. So the next variant that we have of COVID, there's going to be restrictions on us getting vaccines in all the states in the country and of taking healthful measures. This is really scary. And this fellow at the FBI who's said he's going to go along the vengeance path, I don't think that the Republicans are for that. I wonder if the other guest is for that when the Democrats.
Thanks for watching. Go to joinnn.com to find News Nation on your screen. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of News Nation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.